Lead paint part 2. Okay, I had one more thing that I wanted to mention about lead paint, and that is to kind of cap it all off. I've had several people come up to me and just ask me about it, who are concerned about it. You know, there's a lot of kind of different opinions and all kinds of things that have gone around. Well, to kind of reiterate my point here, some people think that it's not so bad. Oh, this is no big deal. There's just this, process of, taking care of this documentation with the government and the EPA and all this, and then of course, this deal about the Attorney General saying they're not going to enforce these EPA laws and all this stuff. Well, this is the thing. In the event that this gets enforced in Oklahoma again, by the way, most states, if you're on the East Coast or the West Coast, chances are the EPA is enforcing all this stuff. And so you guys are already in the middle of it. If you live on the East Coast and West Coast, this may simply be just a necessary evil in terms of dealing with this, because a lot of the homes, especially out in the East Coast, I know a lot of my friends who live out in New Jersey, New York, they're living in areas, maybe the buildings are decades and decades old. Obviously in those situations, those painters are going to know how to deal with it. The other thing is those properties out on the East Coast and West Coast are actually worth restoring and taking care of the lead problem. The problem that I see in a place like Oklahoma is that the real estate values, which by the way, the last time I looked, which is just about a week ago, the real estate values in Oklahoma are about 2/3 of what the average nationwide real estate values are. So real estate properties are really cheap here. But that's the problem that I see with Oklahoma, is that, and that's why you see in Tulsa where basically you have this shift of everything kind of moving south to the river, to Jinx, out to Broken Arrow, and you see everybody moving away from North Tulsa, away from downtown Tulsa, because it's simply cheaper to just build a new home than it is, why would somebody want to restore, especially a smaller size home, an average, smaller 1,500 square foot or even a 2,000 or 2,500 square foot. Why would anybody want to restore a home like that when they can just build a brand spanking new one for less money or whatever, and not have all the headaches that are involved with that? So people say, oh, well, it's no big deal. Well, this is why it's not a big deal. I got talking to one of my neighbors, and he's a painter as well. I said, hey, what are you doing about all this, this lead situation? He's like, oh, no big deal, oh, they have this, deal. You got to take the classes, and oh, it's no big deal. I'm like, yeah, okay. So I said, well, I kept pressing him on this. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's all great, but what about prices? Well, I kept picking away at him because I could tell he wasn't really being. And I don't think he was trying to not be upfront, but I just felt like he really wasn't getting down to the point. Well, eventually I keep pressing him. I'm like, well, ultimately, are you, why would you even do any of this? He says, well, this is real easy. I'm not going to work on homes that are that old. So once I kept pressing him and I kind of peeled away at what he was telling me, oh, it's no big deal, there's these homes. Well, it was no big deal to him because he just wasn't painting them. And he wasn't going to work on them, and all the contractors that he worked with, they're not willing to work on them. So that's the thing, is that the painters out there, they're not even willing to take the risk, the health risk and the legal risk to work on a home that's that old, built before 1978. Why should you buy a home? Sure, you can fix it up yourself, but are you going to do, is your average, and maybe you could do a great job painting your home. The problem is what I see is that the neighborhoods that are older than 1978, generally speaking, what we're going to see is all the values of those homes are going to start to go down, and people are either going to build new ones, or they're going to go to situations where they don't have to worry about home values as a whole in neighborhoods going down because of lead problems. So that's the thing. That's when you buy a home, it's definitely going to be affected. Especially where we live, especially in Oklahoma, where it's really easy to simply just build out. There's plenty of land out here in Oklahoma. It's not like we live in Manhattan and every square inch is worth lots of money. That's not how things work out here. So people are basically going to build somewhere else. They're going to do something different, and that's what I see happening. Is that eventually, and it may take decades for this to catch on. However, you got to hope that you're going to get out from underneath that home you bought. Maybe it was built before 1978. If you buy a home that is that old right now, 30 years from now, or however long your mortgage is, by the time you pay that off, that home may not have the same value, especially once you calculate for inflation. It may not even be worth it. worth what you paid for it. And so anyway, that's just kind of my big warning. So that's the thing. You start pressing these painters, you start talking to them, going, okay, you know, what's it? I want to know specifically, what are you going to charge on this specific situation? And what you're seeing is you're seeing lots of high painting prices, you know, that are well into the thousands of dollars. You can't tell me that with being threatened with fines that are upwards of $30,000 per violation and things like that, you can't tell me professional painters, professional home restoration people aren't going to charge and account for that, and they're not going to charge people through the nose to do that kind of work. Why would you? It's like any other business. Why would anybody engage in a high-risk business and not expect to be compensated for that risk? It just doesn't make sense. And I would say a lot of your painters that are in Tulsa, I mean, there's a good amount of them that just aren't making a lot of money in the first place. I mean, I'll bet you that easily half, I bet you if you slapped a $30,000 fine on various random painters in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that they would basically go bankrupt just through just one fine. And now, thank God the EPA isn't enforcing this, but I just see everything moving out. I see everybody moving south, or whatever direction, wherever there's going to be land where they can build new homes. And so that's my issue with the thing about lead. So I would definitely watch out for that. If you've already bought a home and it's got, you know, it's an older neighborhood and it's around in Oklahoma, I would say, you know, it might be in your best interest to dump that thing as soon as you can, because at some point, especially if you're my age and you're just about to take out a 30-year mortgage, if it's older than 1978, I would say that the chances of that home not being worth a red cent in 30 years are probably too high for me to want to invest six figures into. Okay, so that's the way I feel. I certainly wouldn't invest my money in it. I'm a painter. I'm somebody who has been through hundreds of homes, all kinds of different homes, old ones, new ones. You know, people who have multi-million-dollar houses, people who have, you know, just five-figure, you know, valued houses. So that's just my advice. And I'm definitely glad I waited to buy a home. And I would say that when I buy a home, whenever I decide that that's appropriate for Amanda and I, when I get to that point, I will definitely not be buying a home that's older where I'm going to have to deal with a risk like that. So anyway, part 2 of Beware of the Lead.